Hello, welcome to Insights in Action with Orange 142, where we interview agency leaders and business owners to uncover the journeys, the strategies, and the insights that drive their success. At Orange 142, we're all about transforming brand stories into impactful digital experiences through innovative media and marketing solutions. And today, I am very lucky to be joined by Grant Nielsen of Nuera Marketing. How's it going, Grant?
Yeah, good to have, or thanks for having me. Good. I'm
Yeah.
doing
That's awesome. Cool. Well, Grant, I would love to learn a little bit. We were talking offline. You said you're in the entertainment industry for a little bit, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background and a little bit more about New Era.
Sure. Yeah, Nuera's been around since 2016. We've been in this space almost 9 years. So February will be 9 years here. And it was kind of a strange entry point into marketing. I've been a designer for years and years, and I had a small studio prior to taking the space with my business partner, Joe Sampson. But we had both come from either from the entertainment industry, actually. So I was a performer for years, and
Mhm.
that got into design sort of as a means to an end. I needed album covers and stickers and posters and stuff. And when I was in high school, I started designing. Joe was like a operations guy. So he had been attached to a whole bunch of event production companies and event promotion companies, and he had been doing a bunch of operational consulting. And so we kept finding ourselves on the same boards for various events around the Southeast. And after a while, we had just, hey, like we seem to be the only people at the table who always agree, and we seem to be the most motivated. And so yeah, we started talking about it for a long time. We didn't make a move right away. We sat on the idea for a little while, and then in 2016 we were like, now seems like the right time to start a brick and mortar, more
Yeah.
traditional agency. And I'd worked at some small agencies in the past. He had worked at some large agencies in the past, but this was our first traditional brick and mortar venture. So
Newer marketing was built on a client side perspective to address some of the shortcomings that you and Joe Sampson experienced in the industry. How does this unique foundation influence the way that you guys approach your client relationships and projects?
well, yeah, I would say in a number of ways that the chief one among them is sometimes working with large agencies, especially established agencies, can be it can be a really daunting enterprise if you don't have an experience with that. And so like we kept finding things like scope creep, or if the agency you have paid all this money to owns the keys to the castle, you're beholden to them for every single little thing. And if you ever stop paying them, then everything just evaporates. And working with the traditional agency model can be really hard for a lot of clients beyond being very expensive.
Mhm.
And we were like, we believe there is a better way to interface with a client and find better forms of communication,
Yeah.
a little truer form of communication, potentially. Anything from the way that we do our proposals and our presentations, all the way to the way that we price. We try to keep that end user in our sites at all times. It manifests in all sorts of different ways, but I think that it's one of those things where, like, on Friday I was talking to somebody and she's just like, I just want to compliment you on your communication skills. Is that like a mindful thing? Is that an intentional thing? I was like, oh, absolutely, yeah. That's our religion over at New Era. We try to be as clear as humanly possible.
Yeah, and you guys, you focus on partnering with businesses that have those market tested ideas and big visions. And so how do you keep these companies, or how do you help these companies magnify their strengths and connect with the audiences that matter most?
Well, in that instance, we're probably not so different from lots of agencies, but trying to be really detail oriented. That it's time consuming and it's tiring, and it's I don't know. I think That's almost when you ask a client like, oh, well, what makes you different? They're like, oh, well, our quality's better. But that's the secret to that's our secret ingredient, is that attention to detail. We spend an absurd amount of time in thought about what it is we want to accomplish. Obviously, spending the time developing the materials and the strategies and the audiences and all that stuff. But then once everything is completed, standing back and really trying to poke holes in it, trying to find errors in our own work. And there always are. There's always more, right? There's always a little bit more you can do, a little bit greater, deeper insight that you can apply. Late stage editing is a really common thing at our agency, where like things are ready to go out. We're like, hey, this one quick thing there. So yeah, I don't want to say that we're perfectionists, because that's not true, but we are, just really focused on the details.
How do you help these companies magnify their strengths and connect with the audiences that matter most?
Right. So that, and I think that's the magnify and amplify bit of it is the important piece there, because we're in a smaller market here in Jacksonville. There's a lot of companies that maybe they're going to be huge someday, but they haven't quite gotten that proof of concept in place. Maybe they have a great idea, but they haven't figured out who their audience is, or they haven't figured out how to create a sustainable revenue yet. We remain cheerleaders for those kinds of startups, because we are a microscopic company. We understand the pains of being a truly small business. But until a company is actually ready for that push, sometimes you can actually get in the way. And so the companies with big visions, we love them, but we like there to be a little bit of momentum behind that vision before we step in and suggest operational changes, or rebrand a company, or build an entire website. That's wrong for the organization. Those working with small businesses, the challenge is timing. And we have always tried to find partners that we can create not a sympathetic relationship, but we can create an ecosystem where we and they can look at each other as partners, as opposed to a client and subordinate relationship. So.
Yeah. And I love what you said there at the beginning about, well, you guys have this attention to detail, but I think it's in the nuance, right? Because I'm sure a lot of people say that, like you said, but like the skill is really in the nuance of that. Even when companies say that their unique selling proposition is their quality, I think it's right. And companies aren't wrong in saying that, but really where it lies is the nuance, and you end up seeing that in the work. So usually a lot of times you can back that up with, hey, here's what we do really well, and it's our attention to detail, but here's how it shows up in our work. And
precisely.
Yeah. And so I love that. I love the direction that you take that. And especially looking at your clients as partners, right? Because they're investing their money into agencies like yourself or like us. And on the other end, we're also investing our time and our expertise into them. And so in that, I don't think that we should look at money as this like lopsided thing that gives anybody like, oh, these are our clients, so they need should be a level of equality there in terms of a respect relationship, right?
Yeah, reciprocation is important. And you touched on something too, where what a client is getting is not necessarily just the materials. Maybe they're getting a great website. When they're hiring a company like us, they're getting all kinds of intangibles along with that. So our time really is our product. And it's the amount of insight that comes along with having done this for decades now. Yeah, it's hard to quantify that into a scope of work or a dollar amount. Those are things that the reason that you want a professional on board is because we've already learned so many small details along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to shift the conversation a little bit, because you mentioned that you were interested in talking about something, and this is off camera, but I wanted to touch on it. You're interested in the ethics of AI in advertising. And as AI becomes more prevalent, what ethical considerations do you think that agencies need to prioritize to ensure responsible and transparent use of this new technology?
Well, it's such a loaded topic that it's almost hard to talk about it now in general terms. I had written an article maybe about a year ago when I think it was Midjourney or ChatGPT, one of the big generative AI platforms had been in the news a lot, and people were starting to, especially like artists, were
Mhm.
starting to really get anxious about what's coming.
Mhm.
And it's I don't want to ever dismiss creatives' fear about being displaced by major market events. And as a creative myself, I sympathize with them. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I like where we use AI is not always the biggest, flashiest, sexiest ways. Just, are you a designer?
Not really. No,
Not
more of a
really. Okay.
sales guy.
So I ask because there's a feature in Photoshop that anybody that uses Photoshop in advertising will know what I'm talking about, but it's the generative fill that
I've seen that.
or
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
see
Draw
people
a
doing funny
square.
things with it on the internet and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's such, I can't even begin to describe how useful a tool it is. It is already, let's see, it's December this year or this month, end of the year. I have conservatively saved myself 150 hours of time this year just
Wow.
in that one tool, just that
Yeah.
one tool, because it's not replacing the need to understand design. It's not replacing the need to have good source material going into your photo spreads or whatever. But if I need to add 10% margin on the side,
Yes.
that used to be a really taxing thing. And now it's, oh yeah, there it is. It takes 3 seconds. And those are the kinds of AI that I find to be uh, the most significant, even though what it creates is wholly insignificant.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it
even in that on that note, I think you touched on something really important because you talked about how it saved you time, but you also talked about how it didn't replace things. And I think that's the place of AI right now. It's not meant to be this tool that replaces tasks. You know what I mean? It's not going to have necessarily that design knowledge or that human touch that you have when it comes to
right
design. But can it make your life a little bit easier?
a
Yes,
little bit.
just a little bit. And I think that's its place right now. And maybe that changes later down the road, but at least for right now, and I think that's where we breach even into the ethics of it, is if you're using it to replace all of your tasks, which it can, and it's not a good job, it probably won't do a good job of it. But if you're pushing that out as a product that you're getting paid for, then probably. But you're
Yeah.
using it as a way to save time and just make your life a little bit easier.
And that's on the less controversial, something just fell from my ceiling. That's on the less controversial side of the continuum. On the more controversial side, you might have something like poor representation in generative AI. That's something that we care a lot about. We want businesses to feel represented by the ads that we use. And we use a lot of custom photo and video stuff that we're shooting ourselves for our clients, but there's stock imagery still is it's still vitally important for all kinds of superfluous or smaller advertising tasks. And just the way that we want to see representation in that field, we also then need it to be present in something like, you know, Adobe Firefly or something like that. And so as we get deeper into the AI age, because I think we all agree we've only just stepped foot out of our front door on this topic, but as we go into it, we have an opportunity and I would say a responsibility as advertisers to think about ways to make these systems less biased,
Hmm.
um, and try to make them a little less canned in their
Yeah.
responses. So I'm sure anybody that watches this probably has to deal with ChatGPT on a daily basis. It's pretty easy to read a piece of copy and know if a human is on the other side of it, if you're used to reading copy. But that, of course, doesn't preclude the need for 20 times a day. I might be like, I need these 40 words to be 15 words, and I don't have the time to dissect this sentence 12
Yeah.
times in order to get it the perfect length. I pop a human written piece of copy into ChatGPT. It sends back a 15-word synopsis. Great. Those are all still our words. Still crafted that outline. We
Right.
still made that message. So yeah, I think that AI has an amazing opportunity within advertising to be shaving off all of these rough edges that we're constantly running into as creators and as advertisers and marketers. And it's just that little modest offering
Mhm.
is an immense amount of time saved for our company, which means money saved.
Yeah,
As we said, our
absolutely.
time is our product, time is money. And like, I can't even believe how much savings there were this year just in that.
That's
So
amazing. Wow, that's awesome. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about you, but your agency, and I especially share. Or I love your views on AI. Where can people find out more about you, Grant? Where can people find out more about your agency?
our agency is Nuera, which is Nuera, nueramarketing.com. We have a large amount of our portfolio is on the website. You can see more of us on all the standard social platforms. We're present on all of them. As far as me, well, my handle on most things, which is a holdover from my days in entertainment, is Dr. Concussion, DR Concussion. It's an aggressive handle, but I have the concussions to I've earned the name the hard way, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can look me up on any of those, and I'm
Cool.
present Instagram, Facebook, the whole bit.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast, and can't wait to get this out to everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks.